Guten Tag alle, heute werden wir ein bisschen über die Fehler sprechen. Today we're going to talk again about the cases and specifically the nominative, accusative, and dative case. There's one case that will be missing from our discussion today, and that is the genitive case. Also a very important case to learn, but we'll focus mainly on these three. So our first exercise here, if you will, is to be able to see if you can determine, first of all, in the English, what's the subject, the direct object, and the indirect object. This is very important as a first step to being able to determine the case of German nouns, especially for English speakers, because in English you have to be able to know what the subject is, direct object, and indirect object is, before you can translate that into the German. So the subject, remember, is the nominative case, the direct object is the accusative case, and the indirect object is the dative case in German. So let's take these English sentences and see if we can do this. So for the first one, our subject is I, our verb is can see, we actually have two verbs, and direct object is the man. In the second sentence, you is the subject, me is the indirect object, and food is the direct object. Remember, the direct object is what receives the action of the verb. So in this sentence, you are bringing what? The food. And to whom or for whom something is done or given, or in this case brought, is the indirect object. And this is me. Number 3, he will not hear you. He is the subject, and you is the direct object. Most sentences have direct objects. Not all sentences have indirect objects. I, as the subject, will give you, the indirect object, my number, which is the direct object. She is the subject, cooks what? Breakfast, which is the direct object. For who? Me, indirect object. And then you have every day. She cooks, or she loves me, so me is the direct object. I is the subject, have given, what did you give? Information, that's the direct object. Who did you give this information to? That's the indirect object. And number 8, he, subject, is not my dog. Okay, so let's review the prepositions here. Okay, that's also very important when we're talking about cases, particularly the accusative and dative cases, because some prepositions govern the accusative. Some prepositions are always dative in German. So durch means through in English, and it's an accusative preposition. Aus is out of, it's a dative preposition. Bei means at, or mostly at, and it's dative. Für, for, accusative. Seit, since, dative. Von, from, dative. Gegen, against, accusative. Ohne, without, accusative. Außer, except for, dative. Nach, after, dative. Zu, to, dative. And then around, accusative. So one way to learn this is learn rhymes for the accusative prepositions. Rhymes like durch, für, gegen, ohne, or durch, für, gegen, ohne, accusative, accusative. Okay. Dative, we always just learn with Waltz, for example. Aus, außer, bei, mit, nach, seit, von, zu. Aus, außer, bei, mit, nach, seit, von, zu. So these are just little ways to help you remember the prepositions. Okay, so now we're going to do a little work here in the German. And the question you need to ask yourself, and I have here the chart for the definite articles so that you can see how they change from the nominative to the accusative to the dative. Let's review those. For subjects or nominative case, der Mann, die Frau, das Auto, die Hunde. The accusative, der changes to den, die and das stay the same. So the only ones that will change will be your masculine nouns. And in the dative, the masculine, der, changes to dame. The feminine, die, changes to der. The neuter, das, changes to dame. And for the plural, it becomes dame plus n or en as needed to make your noun following that end in en. So Hunde already ends in an e, so we just added an n to make it Hunden. Okay, so the question here is, in these sentences, which one of these definite articles goes in the blank? So I've given you the gender of the German nouns. For example, number 1, das ist nicht für, and I have Hund, and I've given you that it's masculine, der Hund. So the question is, what is going to be the definite article here in front of Hund? The first question you must ask yourself is, what case is Hund in? Is it a nominative, accusative, or dative? And in this particular sentence, you can see that it comes after für. Für is an accusative preposition, so der Hund changes to den. Was willst du mit? And here we have blank, Buch machen. Buch is a neuter noun, das Buch. So mit, however, is a dative preposition. So in the dative, das Buch will change to dem. Ich muss zu, and then we have Schule gehen. So I have to go to school. Zu is a dative preposition, so zu der Schule, die Schule changing to der. Lehnt, he leans against the wall. Die Wand, it's gegen, it's accusative. So remember the accusative, der changes to den, die and das stay the same, so die Wand stays die Wand. Du kannst nach is a dative preposition, so dem essen gehen. Ich fahre durch, I am driving through. Der Tunnel will change to den, because durch is an accusative preposition. And number 7, we don't have any prepositions, so now you have to say, okay, what's the man in this sentence? So if I put this in English, will you bring the man the money? What are you bringing? The money, that's the direct object or accusative. You're bringing it to the man, who is the indirect object or dative, so it's dem Mann, das Geld bringen. Ich lerne ohne, ohne is accusative preposition, so das Buch stays das. Ich liebe, what do you love, that's the direct object, in this case Schule, which is feminine, which stays die. Und das ist von is a dative preposition, making das change to dem Auto. Okay, so now we're going to do this also with the pronouns in German. So your pronouns in German will also change, just like your definite articles change, depending on the case of the noun. So I hope you're beginning to realize how important being able to determine the case of a noun is. And it's also very important for you to learn the gender of a noun, even though that might seem quite maddening for some of you who are not native speakers in German. It takes a long time, but you will get used to it, and even if you don't know exactly, you can guess with a high degree of being correct. Okay, so let's review the pronouns here. The subject pronouns or nominative pronouns: ich, du, sie, es, wir, ihr, sie, and also sie for you formal. In the direct object pronouns or accusative case, it goes to mich, then dich, ihn, sie, and for it in German, since nouns in German have 3 different genders, there are 3 ways to refer to nouns depending on the gender of the noun you're referring to. So if it were a das word, I would say es. If it were a masculine word like der Bleistift, I would say ihn. Ich sehe ihn, meaning I see the pencil. If it were a feminine noun like die Kreide, I would say I see, ich sehe sie, okay? Or maybe a lamp or something. Okay, so then it goes uns for us, euch for you all, or as we would say here in southern United States, y'all, and then sie for them and sie for you formal. I always say in the accusative, just remember if it was sie in the nominative, it stays sie in the accusative. So sie is still sie for she. It just means in English it changes. It goes to her. Okay, so the dative or indirect object pronouns are mir, dir, ihm, ihr, and then again for 3 different possibilities here: ihm for neuter nouns, ihr for feminine nouns, and ihm for masculine nouns. Uns, euch, and then ihnen with a lowercase I for them, and ihnen with a uppercase I for you. And people say, well, how do you tell what difference this is? How do you tell the difference? It's mostly from context. When it's written, it's easy to see because it's either capitalized or not, unless it starts a sentence or something, which is odd. But that's basically, you know these from context, from the sentences before. Okay, so we're going to try this with the pronouns. Diese Karte ist von. Von is a dative preposition. That's why it's very important that you learn which prepositions are always dative, which are always accusative, and which ones can be either. Diese Karte ist von mir. You wouldn't say, diese Karte ist von mich. Kannst du ihm diese Karte geben? So here, him is the pronoun is the indirect object. I'm giving what? This card to him. So it's dative. So ihm. Wirst du mit uns kommen? And that's dative, but in the accusative and dative it's the same, uns. Kann mich sehen. Here, mich is fulfilling the role of the direct object, so it's accusative. Ich liebe sie, again, fulfilling the role of the direct object, so accusative. Das ist nicht für sie. Here, sie means them, and it comes after the preposition, accusative preposition für, so therefore sie. Wirst du ihr eine Valentinskarte geben? So you're giving the Valentine's card to her, so her is the indirect object. Okay, vielen Dank für das Zuschauen und auf Wiedersehen.